Well, hello. Hello, my fellow sensitive people. It is me, your favorite Dr. Whimsy, here to give you another tarot card reading, whatever you want. It looks like there's a lot of questions coming in, and I'm going to do my best to answer all of them. As you can see, I am back in my kitchen. Yes, this is my kitchen, and what you see behind me is approximately 150 herbs, give or take. And on the bottom of that, you can see various different essential oils, various different types of alcohol, oils, etc. And that's because I make my own soaps, I make my own cleaning solutions. Basically, I do it all. I'm all that in a bag of chips. Over here, you can see our bins. And you can see that is where I store my herbs. And on top of that, we have a bunch of herbs that recently came in that have to be packed and sorted and all that good stuff. And then next to that, you can see my sprouter. I also have a dryer because I do grow some of my own herbs. And then those herbs, of course, have to be dried. Some of the herbs I like to dry are the catnip and the various different mints. And then it's nice when I do send a remedy to my patients. It's sent with love, and it's made right here in my own kitchen. I guess you could call me a good old-fashioned kitchen witch. I'm completely okay with that, being called a kitchen witch, even though I don't practice witchcraft, but sure, why not? Anyway, today we are talking about everything that's going on in the world, and there's a lot going on. People are concerned about Donald Trump. They're concerned about the state that the country is headed in. They're worried about the economy. They're worried about the fact that Russia has entered Estonian airspace and that drones have entered Polish airspace. They see it as a potential act of war against NATO allies and NATO countries. And so I'm kind of wondering, when we have such a broad brush, where do I begin to look at the cards and give people guidance? Tonight, when I was doing my remote views, I just wanted to do a simple single remedy. And that's something that you can do if you're a remote viewer and you're trying to work with the plants. And I chose the plant chamomile. And it's interesting that I chose the plant chamomile because chamomile as an herb is the first herb that I learned about as a young person with aspirations of becoming an herbalist. Chamomile is in the Asteraceae family, and it is shaped similar to dandelion and calendula, which are also in the Asterae or Compositae family. It's associated with the sun, and it brings out the sun, and it's associated with relieving stress, creating calm, and healing anxiety. And so before I went into session tonight to give this reading, I took about 25 grams steeped in hot water of the chamomile tea, several cups, and was meditating with some very nice music. Om Namah Shivaya was the chant. It was a beautiful chant, and just trying to get to a place of peace within me to think about what is it to tell people when they feel so disheartened by all of the things that are going on in the world. And the message that I received as I meditated on the plant chamomile and listened to the mantra, the message that I received is to begin to visualize that spirit wants you to visualize a beautiful world. Visualize the world that you want to live in, the world that you want to create for yourself. Do you want to go live on an ashram and chant all day long, which sounds pretty cool to me? Live in the forest with the happy woodland creatures, or would you rather live in the big city, like I don't know, what was that show? Sex in the City. What was her name? I don't remember that. Point is that the way we come out of a dark place is not to sit and marinate in the things that make us unhappy, but instead, Carrie Bradshaw, that was the name. Do you want to be Carrie Bradshaw? When I was younger, I think I wanted the big life. I lived in New York for a couple of years, expensive, and LA, and did the whole, I don't know, what was that, the big city thing. And now as I get older, I'm more interested in living a much quieter, contemplative life. And I think that's natural. We go through phases where we want to be social, and then phases where we want to be a little bit more quiet. But the point of the message is this. You cannot escape your life. I mean, you could, but it would be better if you would just live your life and begin to conceive and think about the world that you want to create for yourself, and then begin to work towards creating it. The way to create a beautiful world is not to follow people into a dark place if they themselves are in a dark place. The way to create a beautiful world for yourself is to be the leader, is to begin to focus on that world that you want to create for yourself, and begin to work towards creating it so that you can be the lead, so that you can be the person that guides people towards a beautiful life. And that is how we create heaven on earth. Not sitting around constantly thinking about everything that is broken. We are aware of everything that is broken, and of course we have to do our best to heal that which is broken. But we can't lose sight of our own mission to create a beautiful world and to construct a beautiful world, whether it's creating intentional communities, which I strongly believe in. There is still plenty of land for us to all come together with $10,000, $20,000 each and buy a plot of land and put some boxables on the land and just do our thing and grow some vegetables. We can do this. We can create intentional communities with our ducks and our chickens and our rescued pets, and begin to structure for yourself what it is, the world you want to live in, and then begin the process of manifesting it. And then also through social media groups, etc., try and find other people that may want to participate in the world you're trying to create. Don't be bogged down by destructive people or people that are wasting your time. Stay on your path, a path that's positive, that's going to take you in the direction that you want to go in. That is what has worked for me. I had a very clear idea at a very young age that I wanted to work with the herbs when I was very young. I didn't know that it would express itself as a physician, as a naturopathic integrated doctor, but that is how it worked out for me. But I stayed on my path and I continued to study, and I had other hobbies and other interests, but my focus has always been on intention. What is my intention? Does this bring me joy? Does this make me happy? And how can I share it with the world? We've talked about phases that people go through, the natural trajectory. For example, we build our lives very much in this world, usually 0 to 40. We get married, we have kids, etc. 40 is right around the time when women start to go through perimenopause, menopause. You only have about 3% of your fertility after the age of 40. So from 40 to about 70, that's when you might be just peaking at your career, right? So a lot of the time, this is when, especially women start to finally have money, is our 50s and 60s, particularly if you didn't have children to gobble up the money. But, and then you go through a phase of wanting to pull back, be more contemplative, maybe write books, and share your wisdom so that it can assist the next generation. We've talked about that. That phase often goes from ages 70 to 90. And then from 90 to 120 are the years of the philosopher, right? So You look at the Talmud, which says we're destined to live 120 years, but with every trauma, stressing out about our kids, unnecessary stresses, worrying about every little thing, we lose time. And this is why we have Jing herbs, what are called the Jing herbs, or the herbs of immortality, those things that the Chinese medical practitioners, traditional Chinese medicine, studied that would help heal stress, or what we call adrenal support herbs, because of this understanding that the stresses of life can shorten our life. So with all of that in mind, we're going to go ahead and just ask the universe, what do we need to know at this time? And we'll see if we can get a little information about what's going on politically. But regardless of what's going on politically, it should not deter you or take you from your direction in life. And whether the time is up, we are good times, we have bad times, but regardless, we always have to chop wood and carry water. We still have to stay on our path to complete our mission of contributing to heaven on earth. So with that said, let's bring in the empath's prayer. Okay, I want to call on white light protection for myself and this community as we ask permission from Spirit to access the Akashic records. We call on our spirit guides and our good angels to be with us. Please give us the clarity and the wisdom that is needed to empower all of us on our journeys to make the best decisions for ourselves, our families, the planet, the people we love, but also to help those that we may have strife with. And together we say, Amen. The first thing I wanted to go into had to do with concerns about war and whether or not the United States and NATO were going to war. It feels to me that there's a reason why Trump was in England, reestablishing his commitment with England, which is, of course, an ally and a NATO country. And that he is disappointed in Putin. Is he signaling that the U.S. is moving towards getting in the middle of this war? Let's take a look. Good to see you all here, by the way. And if you haven't had a chance to like, share, and subscribe, it would be greatly appreciated. And of course, I want to give a special shout out to all of our members. It's very, very much appreciated. So we can't be laissez-faire about the issue of going to war. War is a very serious thing. When you go to war, people die. And so for that reason, I get a feeling of hesitation to go to war, and it's not entirely a bad thing that we are hesitating about going to war, because one of the things that we're seeing in this remote is a desire not to get people killed. We don't want to get people killed, and we don't want to be bogged down the way we were bogged down in Afghanistan, where a lot of Americans were killed. And so before Americans get involved, cooler heads prevail. Cooler heads prevail before you go marching in like John Wayne, getting yourself or somebody else killed, or getting us potentially in a very dangerous situation. And so what I'm aware of when I go into this energy in terms of world leadership is that it is conscientious of the risks that happen when we enter into war. That it is not a football game. It's serious business, and people will die. The decisions we make, if we go in and we directly confront Putin in an aggressive way or a military way, people will die. And that is something that I'm very consciously aware of as I sit in the shoes of world leadership. And so the base of the matter here is slow and steady. There's no rush to get to war here. This is not a card that would denote war. This is a card of slow and steady wins the race. And we have this April card. Everything and anything that can be done to avoid war is happening. They are supporting Ukraine to the best of their ability, but they're also trying to think in terms of, if we do this thing, if we go in and aggressively attack this individual, what will be the consequences? Will even more people die as a consequence? And so I'm not getting this rushing energy. At the same time, if Poland or Estonia is attacked, then it's not just a case of Putin scaring us into it's a negotiating tactic. So when I put myself in the shoes of Putin, I feel that I am scaring the West and forcing them to make a deal with me because I know they're afraid of me. So in my mind, I don't want them to go to war. In my mind, it's a psychological tactic in order to get them to bargain for peace. Four of Wands is a new beginning, and it's also associated with a 4-month period. Sometimes it's associated with the month of April, which is the 4th month. Wands are time and space. And so I do read Wands literally. Some people read Wands as a 6-month. I read it as a 1-month period. So I'm thinking within 4 months, we could see the end of the conflicts, because we have this slow and steady and also an end, and we have a 4-month period. So a desire to see this coming to an end. Over 1 million people have died. Ukraine doesn't have many fighters. It's lost a lot of fighters. Russia has lost quite a few fighters. And do we want to continue this nightmare? If we go in, then China goes in. This is one of the reasons why perhaps the United States is now wanting to talk to China. I'm seeing a victory card. This is the 6 of Wands, and again, I read it as a 6-month period. But if you're looking at it from the perspective of the West, and I'm looking at it from the perspective of the West has to unify. If we're going to pull ourselves out of the economic problems we're having right now, we can't continue to treat the West and our allies as if they're adversaries. When you are drowning, when you're in an emergency situation, you have to reestablish your commitment to your allies. And I very much feel that the United States was pushing for Trump to be in London for that very reason. It's really this idea of slow and steady wins the race, wanting it to end, but also a feeling of victory here for the West. And the crossing card is, it is the destiny. So it is the destiny of the West most likely to be victorious in this war. And for that reason, I believe that Ukraine will win the war. What is above us at this time? The 3 of Cups is a celebratory card. It has a strong female energy to it. I think it had to do with the story. I believe the goddesses were Aphrodite, Athena, and Hera, dancing with the golden apple. And there's this aspect of celebration, and it's also been known as an armistice card. If when people dance in the streets and they celebrate the end of a war, they will often go out and dance in the streets. It's interesting when you think about the photographs after the end of World War II. You had people dancing in the streets. Since we are asking about war, and since we are looking at the global situation from a Western perspective, I would say it's very auspicious. What we're sitting in right now is a desire to take the weapons of war away from our enemies, which is the 5 of Swords. It's a desire to take away the weapons of war in a situation of conflict. And what we're coming out of is the 2 of Cups, which is a treaty. When you think about marriage, when you think about getting married to another person, you're basically creating an alliance and a treaty between the 2 individuals. What's interesting about the 2 of Cups as an alliance or a treaty is the difference between the energy of yin and yang. And we've talked about that in the past when I think last Sunday we finished up the cups in our class on the tarot. You can see her energy, which is expressive of the yin. She's in the colors of the night with that beautiful blue and black. And her positioning is solid and stationary and grounding, typified of the energy of yin. Whereas he is more orange, red, yang. So you have the balance of the yin and the yang. You can see one of his foot is forward and his hand reaches out to her. This is the action of the yang. So we have the yin and the yang coming together in this beautiful harmonious blessing of the winged Lion of Judah. This is the wing as if they've received this anointing. The twining of the asp, you can see, which is medicinal. It was considered, it is the symbol of medicine. But what we have here is also a card of treaties, a reaffirming of our treaties with our allies, and what we are entering into, great betrayal, a sense of great betrayal, that those we thought that we could trust, we cannot trust, or a sense of betrayal. The worst thing that could happen in the United States right now is for Americans to begin to pick up arms against Americans. What happened with the Charlie Kirk assassination? People say things that we disagree with all the time. They say crazy things all the time. The crazy uncle, the crazy brother-in-law, had one too many drinks and then says all kinds of crazy things. But we would never put hands on someone just because they say crazy things. The greatest threat to the harmony and peace is a sense of betrayal. And the worst thing that we could be doing right now as a nation, particularly when it comes to our allies, is betraying those allies. And so this is also true if you have members of your family who you don't politically agree with, that ultimately they are still family. They may be beautiful, wonderful people, and you just don't understand why they voted the way they did or the decisions that they made. But this is a warning to all of us that we must come together in unity and think about the greater picture, and that is what is going to be best for all of us long term and our allies. The Five of Pentacles. Five is action and movement. Pentacles are often associated with money or coin. Its time stamp is a week or a weekly period. But it's a card that has been called a poverty card. You have the two poor people that are locked out of the church. There's a light in the window, but they can't figure out how to get in. They're freezing. Sometimes the people we love and care about are dragging us down into a very, very dark place, and we're trying to help them. And in the end, you both end up drowning or freezing to death. If that person cannot move, keep them warm, elevate their feet, and then say, stay here. I'm going to see if I can get a door open. But if you slow down until the other person if another person is dragging you down and you're slowing down to the point that you yourself are going to wind up freezing to death, at that point you have to make a calculated decision. Do I get this person comfortable, and then I got to get out of there and go and find an opening? So the warning of the poverty card is really about the things that drag us down, whether it's thoughts. It's not always people. It can be our own negativity. Trusting the wrong people, giving money to the wrong people, not trusting ourselves enough. But don't let the things of life drag you down. In terms of what's going on globally, there's a real feeling I get in these cards that if we don't come together with Europe, reestablish our commitments to our allies, and begin to work out our disagreements, it will lead to everybody being poor, everybody being out in the cold, everybody feeling betrayed, rather than how can we come together to cooperate in order to pull ourselves out of this. The opposition at this time is a desire to expand their territory or get their wish. So now we have a conflict with China, where China is meeting with Trump, and I guess he's going to meet with Xi, and they're going to work things out. This is actually auspicious. I would say it's auspicious because anything that can put the conflict to an end and at the same time try and work with people in order to evade war They want to get their trade out. Three of Wands is about waiting for your ship to come in. It's associated with trade, as is the Two of Wands, partnership, trade, importing and exporting. And so there are ways that particularly if we look at it in terms of what is best for everyone involved, that we can move away from war towards mutual cooperation. The hope and fear at this time. It's interesting. I always see the Seven of Pentacles as the new green economy. The new green economy is any economy or any way that makes money that ultimately improves the health of the planet. An example of that would be somebody who's growing something that's very nutritious and very healthy, optimally using the land in a way which is productive, that keeps the land healthy, and then ultimately earns them a profit. So the healthier the planet is, the bigger crop they yield. A healthy, robust plant that's been raised organically, and happy bees that have strong immune systems, right? So ultimately, the missing link is the more we love and care for the planet, the more we're aligned with caring for the planet, the more the planet cooperates with us, and then there's abundance for all. And the final outcome for us at this time is war. As many of you know, the Knight of Swords has been called the bull in the china shop, and it's an aggressive or violent act. If we're talking about war, then I would say the Knight of Swords is exactly the card that would indicate violent or aggressive behavior. And for that reason, despite the fact that the West does not want to enter into a war with Putin, I would say with these cards, it is inevitable, particularly if you have a Ten of Swords or a feeling that contracts were broken and betrayed. And this inevitable movement towards war leads me to think that that is precisely what's going to happen, that the West is going to strike Russia. And unfortunately, we are now at war with Russia. And the fact that we are negotiating peace with China leads me to think that we will make a deal with China so that they will not cooperate if we do go in. So think about it like this. We give China what they want. We work out a trade deal with them because we make a lot of money from China. They make a lot of money from us. We work out a way to end the trade war, and in exchange for that, they sit back and do nothing to help Putin while the West goes in and at this rate marches on Moscow. And I hate to say that because I've always wanted to believe that people can change, but based on the remotes up to this point, and based on the mental health of Putin, and based on everything that I've seen as a remote viewer for the last 7 years, I believe that it is inevitable that the West will remove Putin. The Knight of Swords, as I have said, is a card of war. If you're looking at it in terms of elements, it is the element of metal, wind, and ether. And so for that reason, it's associated also with things that attack the immune system. Wei Qi is our ability to protect ourselves against the wind, the attacks of the wind, viruses, epidemics that are carried on the wind. And so also we could be seeing storms, hurricanes. We could have a very rough time of it in October, November, if we're talking about hurricane season. The clarification at this time over the issue of poverty, we must be patient because working out trade deals, I do believe that that the United States was facing possible legal sanctions and actions by World Trade Organization and monetary funds. They were looking at sanctioning or taking action against the United States for violation of its trade deals and treaties. You can't just go and change the rules with your trade partners. And so for that reason, everything has to be renegotiated, and we have some patience coming out of this poverty. And the opposition at this time, we see justice. So there has to be justice in the trade wars. We can't just bully other people and say, well, I'm taking it all. I'm going to have it all, and there's nothing you can do about it. The hope and fear at this time, again, conflict, Five of Wands can be a positive card, but not when it's next to a Knight of Swords, because Five of Wands is conflict. And with a Knight of Swords, I would say that is war. And then the final outcome here is that the Sun comes out. I agree with those people who have said that war is inevitable. Unfortunately, war is inevitable, but I also believe that the United States and the West will win that war. What do I think will become of Putin? As I've said in previous remotes, I don't think that Russia ever has turned its leaders over to the West. Not even in the case of the Tsar. They took care of it themselves. It's just not who they are. They don't hand their leaders over to the West. They will take care of him themselves. If it means sending him off to Siberia, so be it. He has a very nice villa there. But they've decided to act. I can say that because those of you who watch my channel, you know that the Knight of Swords has come up as the outcome at least 3-4 times. And I just think that it's very obvious we're moving towards war. I want to just do a quick thing, a blitz, 4 cards, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th houses, to see what's going on with Trump. I know many of you are interested in his mental and physical health. He's nearly 80 years old. I think he's doing great considering what his diet is. But let's see how Trump is doing. And we have the Queen of Pentacles. You know, it's interesting that he's been told to get back to the business of DC and back to, this is a business person. And the opposition at this time, fear of the market and fear of market crashes, hopes and fears. He fears being controlled or confined. He may be becoming increasingly paranoid or fear incarceration. And then the final outcome for him is the Two of Swords, which is a refusal, a stubbornness, a refusal to cooperate, a refusal to see his problems or what he may have potentially participated in. Inevitably, he will have to reach across the aisle in order to save the situation. Looks like the market will have a downturn, but will come around. And he will be fighting with people, but he's becoming increasingly weak. And I don't think, the fact that he has a lovers over him means he's going to have to reach over to the other side. Good news, 9 of Cups over the market crash means that we have so many beautiful things we're producing, particularly our wisdom now when it comes to the environment. There are so many ways we can produce food now and save the planet, knowledge we didn't have before, renewable resources, that we actually go into a time of the 9 of Cups, Ace of Cups, very auspicious actually. However, he himself remains as the Two of Swords of 5 of Wands, a man deeply conflicted, a man who refuses to see his imperfections. And even though he may be having to acquiesce to other powers, I don't anticipate that he has much of a future left. I want to look at I know that a lot of people are upset about Jimmy Kimmel being fired and what the consequences are. And I know that Jimmy Kimmel was seen going to his lawyer, so we're looking at a potential lawsuit. And I just want to see how Jimmy Kimmel is going to do on that. And we have the first card, there he is. And there he is with the evidence. So he actually has a team of lawyers working with him. And the final outcome is he's not quite sure what he wants to do, but he is looking at his evidence. It's interesting that Colbert also got fired, and it's like the joke, what does he, Fallon, and Colbert all have in common? They were all choir boys, right? They were all good Catholic choir boys. That's the joke about every single guy now that's in this situation. They were raised to be good Catholic boys, right? Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, and now Jimmy Kimmel. And so they grew up with a kind of idealized idea of be a good Boy Scout, be a good choir boy, tell the truth, fight for that which is right. And I think that's lovely. But it also puts them in a situation where those old time ethics are now coming up, and they have to address this person who they feel is going against this fundamental rightness that they were raised with. I think we sometimes bash different religions, the Catholic Church or whatever, but this is an example where raising kids with certain values about right and wrong stayed with these three men in ways that is really quite lovely and quite noble. But you have this healing of a situation, an attempt to heal the situation. The bottom line is that I feel that the networks are losing money, that people are, this is what I predicted a couple of years ago, that Hollywood is dead and that people are moving towards social media like YouTube. And as a result, they just can no longer afford, they don't have the numbers that they once had because people would rather be on TikTok or X or YouTube. However, there's some kind of an agreement or deal that they would like to work out with Kimmel. Maybe have him come back. Kimmel? That's right, Kimmel. Have him come back or complete something. But in the end, he ultimately is probably going to finish just because there's no longer a market for the type of entertainment that he does. Legally, though, he's within his rights because the Five of Swords comes to him as the outcome, which leads me to think that even though more than likely he would not have had his contract renewed because of the direction everybody's off TV, Netflix, if you are going to watch anything. At the same time, I would say that this is one of the areas where, again, we're seeing conservatives going up against Trump because they don't approve of censorship. And particularly, you're getting a big pushback from independents and libertarians, right? Free speech is huge for a libertarian. Last thing I want to look at is what's going to come of the Epstein file. I know that a lot of people want to see what the consequences of the Epstein file is going to be and what the consequences will be for Donald Trump. I'm curious as well. I have no idea. This is the Epstein file. Just 4 cards real quickly. Epstein file. Consequences. We have the investigation that will not end. We're opening up with a Hermit card, and a Hermit card is an investigation or to go deeply into something. So it's become an obsession for people. It's like Lay's potato chip. You can't eat just one. It's like they find one thing and then they find another, and then now they're going after all of the documents that were removed by Epstein when he told Ghislaine, erase every email between me and Trump. Right now there's some correspondence they found where everything, and it had to be erased when he got into the political arena. So now there are people trying to recapture that. So you have a lot of sleuths. You have a lot of people that are independently investigating and trying to find that information and piece it together. And the opposition being Trump, 4 of Swords, sunk in the grave. He can't stop it. He cannot stop this, and I'm not so sure his cabinet wants that. Hopes and Fears, female power card moving into 9th position. Are women simply going to outlive men? Is that how they win? And the King of Cups is the final outcome. Clarification at this time is the Fool. The Fool over the Magician, examining the Fool. An offer of Ace of Cups, interesting. Hopes and Fears over the Lady. Financial compensation, and then the final outcome is 2 of Pentacles. I think that Congress is going to have to hand it over. I think Congress is going to have to turn on Trump, particularly as this thing blows up. And I'm going to go ahead and predict, based on these cards, that even more information is going to come out, and it's going to be a massive bomb of horror. And I think that this nightmare is not going to end. And I think that inevitably Congress is going to have to throw in the towel for Donald Trump because they're investigating this fool. You've got this foolish behavior. You've got this investigation happening. And then the opposition surrendering with an Ace of Cups. What's also interesting is that you have this, Gabriel is Archangel Gabriel is Page of Pentacles. He's the closest to the earth of all the archangels. He is the one that inspires us, Muhammad, peace be upon him, right? The Quran was inspired through Gabriel. So Gabriel has always historically been close to the messages that we receive through writing the Constitution of Russia, Gorbachev, when I think he was in Wings of Desire, right? So it's this idea of the mystical truth being expressed through the people. It also has to do with work, labor, creation, finances. And then the final outcome here is the Two of Pentacles, the dirty deed. I think that the King of Cups is most likely Mike Johnson, and I think that in the end, they're going to have to throw this guy to the wolves. It's simply, these cards, this investigation is not going to end until everything is out in the public, and everything horrible that Donald Trump did, every act he did with, they thought it was funny torturing their victims. This was a big joke for them. They thought crying children, this was funny to them. They had laughs over this. And the horror of that is very quickly coming to the surface. And I don't think the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, these newspapers are going to stop. And I'm going to go ahead and predict within 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to see another bomb drop, and it's going to be massive. All right. Thank you, everybody, for hanging with me during this evening of remote viewings and the tarot cards. If you're trying to get in for a reading with me, you can find all that information below. Also, be sure and like and subscribe as we slowly march towards 100,000 subscribers. And much gratitude if you do decide to become a member. We have free readings for members. And at the Elders and Empath level, we teach remote viewing and cards as well. All right, everyone, be kind to all so that all will be kind to you too. God bless. Peace out. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye.